So just the other day at the September Nintendo Direct, we did indeed get a portion of the event focused on Nintendo Switch Online and the future roadmap of N64 games. And while some were expecting the Game Boy family of systems to be the big reveal at this event, I did speculate in a previous video that if Nintendo didn't think it was time to launch those new family of systems, that maybe in turn they would do a hype up roadmap for future games on the N64, potentially even including big names like Goldeneye to help justify the resubscription that does come around along this time if you are on an annual plan. And in today's video, I want to go through an interesting article typed up around this roadmap and actually have a detailed discussion of what this means for the future of N64 games and the expansion pack and even future consoles being added into the service going forward. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. As I mentioned, guys, today we are taking a look at Nintendo and the current state of Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack now that the September Nintendo Direct has come and gone, and we can essentially dismiss the idea that we are right around the corner from the Game Boy family of systems potentially being added into the service soon. As if I am a betting man, I do believe that the September Direct is when Nintendo will make big changes and big announcements for the service. So I personally am in the camp that maybe E3 time window, or most likely the next September Direct in 2023 would be the time that I would expect an entirely new family of systems to be added into the service. And that begs the question, where are they going with N64 games and the continued roadmap for support from here, as we do have some interesting tidbits that came from the most recent announcements, which of course features more N64 games are coming to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. Yes, including that one, of course, referencing James Bond GoldenEye 007 that I don't think anybody anticipated until it was announced. And yes, there was some talk online, maybe it would be there, maybe that would be the big hype reason for people to resubscribe to NSO, and that's what Nintendo would end up doing. I even speculated that, but I still had my doubts on whether or not Nintendo would actually go that route, and they did of course do so. Now, where I want to spend a little bit of time is actually on the breakdown of what was said during this portion when we got a detailed look at what games would be around the corner in 2022 and 2023, because Nintendo used an interesting phrase saying that these games would be gradually added into the service. And immediately in my head, I thought gradually sounds like we may not be sticking to a one per month new N64 game any longer. And while that has not been confirmed yet, I do have some speculation I want to dive into around it, because originally I thought maybe we're okay because we actually have Pilot Wing 64 here, Mario Party 3 and 2 all slated for 2022. And I thought, well, you know what? At the end of this thing, we got Goldeneye announced for this, well, not this year, but coming soon rather. And I believed it would probably be a 2022 title. However, there is some talk online that Goldeneye may be indeed slated for a next year release, which if that is the case, and we are talking about 2023 for that game, well, then at that point, we actually have one less game on the roadmap in terms of we still need our September title. We don't know what that may be. We still need a October title, and then a November title, and then a December title, leading us to believe that we would be missing one in 2022 and not sticking to a monthly roadmap schedule. Granted, it may kind of just be like a month and a week or two apart. Like, that's definitely what Nintendo could do. They could just get more laxed on the not sticking to one per calendar month if Goldeneye is not out this year rather. Now, in the event that we lead into 2023 and we have to talk about games like Mario Party 3, Pokemon Stadium 2, which both of those games absolutely fantastic, 1080 Snowboarding and Excite Bike 64. Now, that's the end of our roadmap there, and we have 5 games that, if they do one per month, would take us through until May of next year, which, you know, are they going to come out with another updated roadmap, or do they do the Pokemon Puzzle League type of thing where we just get a surprise announcement that Pokemon Puzzle League is going to be this game that we didn't know about, it wasn't on the roadmap, and we get a couple essentially that are not tied to a roadmap? That definitely could be the case, as I think Nintendo and this service going forward will get more relaxed with the update schedule, essentially not being so rigid and tied to certain expectations, as that's exactly what we've seen them do with every other console on the service so far, where you kind of get NES games, and you can expect them month in and month out, and a new batch of games to drop each and every calendar month. Same thing with SNES, and then Sega Genesis being one of the unique ones that actually launched in a sporadic state where we got the first round of games, and then it's essentially been every couple months more or less that we see a batch of new games. But they essentially go in the direction of sticking to some kind of a formula when the service is fresh, and then ultimately at one point in time we went a full 6 months without seeing any new games added in for the NES and SNES tier, and that's why I was actually a little bit hopeful that we would get something like Game Boy family of systems and throw Game Boy Original and Game Boy Color onto the base tier of the service, because if I'm a $20 annual paying subscriber, I am really not getting much other than save cloud data ability, and of course the main thing being able to play online. But that old classic library of NES and SNES games has really died off, and while you get the occasional one that's worth booting up, Nintendo is not paying licensing fees for many of these games to get some fan classics that are still being asked for on there, but rather kind of scraping the bottom of that discount bin that you would find in a old retro used game store. And so I certainly hope that that is not the route that we go with N64 games. But what I do think Nintendo will do is fully exploit the strong titles that they have easy access to in their library of N64 games, and have the occasional heavy hitter like a Goldeneye that we did see revealed at this September Direct, which that's a huge one for many different reasons, and we will definitely deep dive on what's going on with that game in a second as well. One thing I do want to point out around the Pokemon games is that while the Pokemon Company, yes, is responsible for those, and Nintendo does have a great working relationship with them, those are fun and exciting ones that I think fans should be looking forward to. It's also notable, and Nintendo Life points this out in their article, that say it's a fine list, although the fact that Pokemon Stadium relies so heavily on importing your own pocket monsters into the N64-bit game via the transfer pack makes you wonder if there might be some Game Boy functionality in the works for NSO as per rumors. And of course, when that Game Boy emulator leak did take place online, we did see spots in the code that did reference things like transfer pack functionality, which this very well could be some kind of foreshadowing towards what Nintendo is planning in terms of cross support between Pokemon games potentially coming from the Game Boy and games like Pokemon Stadium on the N64, which I think would be a fantastic thing to celebrate if Nintendo does indeed add that. And the rest of these games to me are solid. You can argue that yes, these are all easier titles for Nintendo to secure, and I think that's what we're ultimately going to see them do with the rest of the N64 library for the most part, outside of some of the rare games that are still missing from this list that we hopefully see, like your Donkey Kong 64, your Diddy Kong Racing, even your Conker's Bad Fur Day and Perfect Dark. That is totally a possibility that we see those games come over in the far distant future and kind of be that reason to resubscribe, if you will, or just stay plugged into the service after we get past this roadmap. The one nitpick you can throw on this roadmap as well is if you are not a fan of Mario Party, almost a quarter or half actually of your games essentially on this list are going to be not interesting to you. And while I do enjoy the personally enjoy the classic Mario parties, you could argue that yes, we do have Mario Party Superstars now, but it's still a nice perk for the service to have online play with the original N64 experience. But that, all of that said, it is still 3 Mario Parties, 1, 2, and 3, and I'm assuming they won't come out back to back because that's just too much Mario Party, but we are getting Mario Party 1 and 2, at least in some form or factor. So if I'm going to put my money on what the 2022 lineup will be, it would be Mario Party, then Pilot Wing 64, then Mario Party 2, but it is still interesting that we're going to go back and forth with just a month or two in between different Mario Party titles. Now, I then want to pivot the conversation to an interesting situation that's going on with Goldeneye, because clearly when Goldeneye did air on the Direct, that was a very shock moment and a hype one for me, because again, that was a surprise. That was a bombshell announcement that I did not expect to have at that event. However, one interesting scenario that's going on with Goldeneye is, of course, Microsoft, Nintendo, and MGM are essentially the rights holders for that title, and so Microsoft, shortly after that Nintendo Direct trailer aired, did confirm that they would have Goldeneye coming to the Xbox as well, available as both a Game Pass title, and to people who've purchased a physical copy of Rare Replay could actually download the game and experience the new version, which I think is a very nice and consumer friendly thing to do. Just throw it on Rare Replay, essentially adding in DLC, free DLC at that, for a game that you'd already purchased before. But there is this interesting tweet posted up over from Tom Warren where he says, "I've reached out to Microsoft, Rare, and Nintendo to clarify what's going on with GoldenEye 007. It looks like the original N64 game is coming to the Nintendo Switch, while a different version is coming to the Xbox. Pretty confusing situation either way." And he is quote tweeting here the following from Evil Boris, where it says, "Nintendo and Microsoft's entirely separate reveals of GoldenEye have entirely different copyright information for the game. Nintendo is from 1997 and Microsoft says 1997 to 2022. The Switch version is the N64 game ROM and the Xbox version is a new remaster." You also have MVG chiming in on this, saying that the Switch has NSO, so it was always going to be just the ROM. Rare has the source code, so outside building / licensing of an N64 emulator to target Xbox, GE would need compiled on Xbox in the same way as other Rare Replay games. So essentially, there's some coding talk going on there, but the other reason that this is being talked about quite a bit in terms of GoldenEye specifically is the fact that there is actually talk online that the Nintendo Switch Online version may be the only version that supports online play. So very well, what could be happening is they sign some kind of deal where Nintendo gets this game in the N64 state with online play added in and just a simple upres, and Microsoft in turn actually has things like the native widescreen support, the higher resolutions, higher frame rates, and Nintendo's just going to clean up the ROM like we've seen them do with all the other N64 titles and add an online play, which will be a big selling point for you to play it on the Nintendo Switch. And Microsoft ultimately gets the technologically superior version, but it will not potentially, this is not confirmed, but so far it is being talked about because it's not mentioned on Microsoft's website or the GoldenEye website, that Microsoft's version will actually not support online play, essentially not letting you have the best of both worlds, which is kind of a shame at the end of the day. Although I do see myself playing this most likely on my Nintendo Switch, sometimes in handheld mode just for fun on OLED, and I honestly want to go through the campaign in addition to online play. So when I go through the campaign, I may boot up that one on my Xbox, but outside of that, I see myself playing this a lot on the Switch online. But it is a very interesting scenario when you have different companies that have transferred the rights of this game, and it's such a fan classic that yes, the win is we ultimately got it back and it's part of the next updated roadmap of N64 games. But there is definitely some confusion around who gets what when it comes to this particular title and what that online play scenario will ultimately look like. I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, all your personal thoughts and speculation with where you think Nintendo's headed from here in terms of NSO plus expansion pack. Do you think that this new updated roadmap of games takes us through the rest of 2023 potentially with just sporadic updates after that with unannounced roadmap games similar to what we saw with Pokemon Puzzle League, and we don't get anything in terms of new systems until the September Direct at the earliest? Or do you think that something as soon as February, maybe we do see that Game Boy family of systems surprise announced at that event and Nintendo ultimately starts to pack in more to the service at a faster pace than I think they are going to, because I honestly do believe that Nintendo will drip feed this service as long as humanly possible to make it an ongoing subscription model and not just front load all of their classics and all of their classic systems in a hurry, because they know they can play the long game with this and keep people enticed for those annual subscriptions. So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics.